Hi, everyone. My name is Andrew Jeffers, and I serve as the media coordinator at the Alliance for Innovation and Infrastructure, AII. And today I'm gladly joined by MG Govia from OKIE811 in celebration of 811 Day. MG, it's so great to be with you here today.
Well, thank you, Andrew. I'm looking forward to our conversation and promoting 811.
Obviously, damage prevention is extremely important. It's really exciting to see your point of view and gain insight on everything that you see day to day. My first question is, what is your role and what are your responsibilities?
Yeah, my name's MG Govia. As you stated, I'm with Oki 811 as their education and outreach liaison. And what that fancy title means is I just get to go around and promote the damage prevention services that Oki 811 provides. So I go out and educate both our excavator community, those who are going to be digging, right? We need to let them know the importance of 811 and how it protects them, as well as working with our member companies who are facility operators who own and operate underground facilities that receive those locate requests and make sure that they under their responsibilities to maintain their asset registration, make sure they're marking their lines accurately so that out there in the field, the excavators can clearly see where these underground facilities should be located and dig safely around them.
So, why is it crucial for homeowners and contractors to call 811 before starting any digging project?
OK1 is a small company, and Oklahoma is definitely not the biggest state when it comes to locate requests. Our neighbor to the south does well over 10 million tickets a year, while yet last year OK1 processed 1.2 million tickets. Our population, although may be smaller, we still have a lot of activity. Oklahoma is known as an oil and gas state. We're also a huge agricultural state as well. And we're also a state that's very energy independent. We don't have to bring in energy from surrounding states, right? And so we are known for being self-sufficient and taking care of ourselves and taking care of our neighbors. Oklahoma has gone through some trials in our time. I mean, we've all heard about the Oklahoma City bombing and stuff like that. So we have a community that looks out for each other. And there's no bigger of a community that looks out for each other than neighbors. And when we talk to our homeowners about putting in 811 tickets, we remind them that the importance of 811 isn't not necessarily just you and your utilities. It's also the cable to the television of your neighbors. It's also the telephone for someone who might be elderly who needs to be able to call 911 if they have a fall or need to be able to use electric for their AC in these hot Oklahoma summers. So we focus on our homeowners more of a neighbor aspect
Mhm.
and taking care of their utilities as more so than, hey, we really don't want you to hit an electric line or a gas line because of the dangers. We want them to be more focused on making sure that their neighbors aren't inconvenienced. And for some reason, that switch, that angle perspective, if you will, has been able to promote homeowners understand that yes, it's to keep them safe, but more importantly, not to interrupt the services of their neighbors. And so when it comes to that, that has helped a lot. On the professional side, if you're going to do 1,000 jobs in a year and you're going to take that risk 1,000 different times of digging, we want to make sure that you're going to be safe every single time as you do that. And A11 is the beginning of that communication process to have those lines located so you're not digging blind. And so you have more frequency. We want to make sure that you're using A11 every time because if you do it 1,000 times a year and you only use this 999, that one time could be the time that you hit something that could cause those big damages or injury or worse to your workers.
That's right. And I love how you guys are community oriented. That's
Mhm.
what an awesome angle to come at in order to have people have more of a sense of urgency,
Hmm.
where it's not just about where they mess up, but it affects the whole.
Yeah.
Um, so we're talking about the risks. Are there any specific examples or statistics that highlight the potential dangers or financial costs of not calling 811?
Yeah. So there's an organization called Common Ground Alliance. They're the reason that the phone number 811 exists. They went to the FCC and got that all approved almost a decade ago, I think. And when they did, that part of their organization does this report called DIRT. the damage incident reporting tool, and you can get state specific data. So any listeners would want to go check that out, they can. But what we look at is root causes for what happens when damages occur. Like, why did this happen? And the big three reasons that it happens is either no locate was being put in, a locator made an error, or the excavator made a mistake. And when you look at those three things, it makes sense that the excavator making a mistake is the largest percentage of it. It's around 61% of those damages is because an excavator made that mistake of digging within the tolerance zone when they shouldn't with heavy equipment. Here in Oklahoma, you shouldn't use heavy equipment within 2 feet either side of a pipe or underground facility. Just a higher risk of damage. Big excavator machine, right? It makes sense. And so sometimes they want to take a shortcut and they hit something, and then there's the results of that damage. And that could be obviously the worker. We want to make sure he understands that he's the main reason that this all exists. And so we don't want him to get injured or hurt. But then after that, we're looking at environmental contamination. We're looking at possible fire or other issues there, or the effect that it may have on this team that may be within toxic gas release or something like that. There are consequences for being unsafe, but we can improve that by focusing on the communication of 811, understanding the tolerance zone, making sure that they're going through the entire process from pre-excavation through backfill, checking the boxes of what is safe. And if there's ever a moment where they're like, is this the safest it could possibly be? Analyze it, and if it's not, make it safer. And then after you do that, look at it and make it safer again. Because that's the purpose of all of this. Excavation activity, it's one of the more dangerous professions out there. There's more fatalities through excavation than there's through our fire and police in a year. And I didn't know that until recently. And that just, but again, this is a numbers thing, right? There's more excavators than police, but still, it's still really dangerous to get out there and do this day to day. So we want to make sure that they know that. For the damage prevention side is more of a excavation safety. Now, you did ask about numbers, and I do have a little bit for you there. When it comes to damages, there's like this hierarchy of understanding what's underground and the cost of repairing it. Pipelines and fiber communications are definitely the two most expensive repairs out there. Fiber communication, that technology is still really, really new, and it's also an expensive product to transmit literally light underground for our communications and all these things. So a repair of fiber damage can easily be 6 figures just for a small repair for them to splice those fiber lines. And then pipelines in conjunction to the product that's lost, because oil costs money, right? In conjunction with the product that's lost, we're also looking at the costs for the environmental cleanup and things of that nature as well. So the risk of this, that even the 6 figures and the environmental cleanup and all these things are big numbers, and I do want people to have that in their mind. As MG, as somebody who just cares about the excavation community, I don't really care about those costs because my member companies and everyone who's associated with the 811 side understand that the cost of those things can all be replaced, repaired, and restored. A worker's health and safety, we want them to be able to come back to work tomorrow. And that's more important than the damages that we're preventing. Because if we keep that person safe, the damage prevention will take care of itself.
When people do move through the process efficiently and they're not trying to cut corners, what type of underground utilities are typically marked when someone calls 811 in the state of Oklahoma?
To my understanding, this is all 811 centers, but Oklahoma specifically is all lines that are owned or maintained by a company have to be registered with OKIE811. And so our membership is anything from oil and gas, telecom, electric, water, and sewer. And so all of those are registered members of us. So whether it's a municipality that supplies water to their community, a rural water system, electric co-op, a natural gas company, all of those companies have to register their assets with us and then be ready and willing to go out and locate their lines within 3 business days of notification that digging is going to take place. And so they'll go and mark those lines from that process. The one thing that keep in mind with 811 is there are lines that do not get marked, right? Because as I stated, OKIE811 and most one call centers are a nonprofit member funded company. So our members, whether it's that municipality or that natural gas company, for every locate request they receive, they pay into our operations costs, right? So we don't want to make them spend more than they need to. We don't want, where there's no profit to be made. We're just making sure the operations are covered. So those members who pay into our service, they are going to mark what they own and maintain. And so anything that is not owned and maintained by a facility operator, it has to be marked or protected by the property owner. And this would be things where a water company or a city will locate their water up until a meter, but anything beyond the meter would be the property owner's responsibility to have marked. Obvious ones are propane lines, French drains, sprinkler systems, right? There's no sprinkler systems utility.com, right? There's nothing like that. So those are things that are outside of 811 that in the grand scheme of things are still part of the damage prevention process. We want to make sure that our homeowners can still have nice lawns and stuff, right? In addition to being able to keep them safe from the higher consequence of the utilities that are being marked as well.
How often would you say excavators hit unmarked lines, but not more recently constructed lines, older ones?
Oklahoma, luckily, is one of the newer states where we've only been around since 1907, right? And so when it comes to the infrastructure and all this stuff, a lot of things are a little bit newer than, say, New England and older America, right? And so our infrastructure, while newer, there are still going to be things that are going to be unlocatable because technology just went faster than our locating technology for a long while, right? And so people were just like, yeah, I'll find that water. Let me go grab some coat hangers and I'll be good, right? And that's how the locating technology used to keep up with what's underground. Now, what's underground needs to be located when locating equipment and technology didn't really take off until like the 90s, while our law's been around since 1979. And so there's a lot of opportunity for our member companies to improve their mapping, to put in things such as tracer wire, things of that nature, so they can locate some of the older assets that may have been like clay, may have been some materials that are just really hard to locate. So right now, our membership is doing a really, really good job of trying to update, upgrade, and bring that technology forward so that those things can be located. Now, when there is unlocatable lines, that happens, like a natural gas company may have unlocatable lines in the community, that delays a project, but it's still the responsibility of that natural gas company to keep in communication with that excavator who's in that area. And even if it means manually digging with the excavator to find and lay eyes on that natural gas unlocatable line, it's better for the project, it's better for the safety, and it's great community involvement by those companies that'll go that extra mile to help that excavator stay safe on those projects.
Bearing all of that in mind and going back just a smidge, how has innovation and technology improved over the last 10 years, and where do you see it going from here?
Oh, great question. Oklahoma, I want to brag on us just a little bit. We've been doing a lot of cool things in the last 5 years, easy. I'm not going to say that it is coincidentally about how long I've been in this role, but I'm just saying I've noticed these things in the last 5 years. We've done things such as mandatory positive response. Mandatory positive response is a technology item, but what it does is it means that the locator, once they go out and locate for this company, they have to provide a positive response that lets them know the locate status. Yes, I've been out there, it's marked, we're all good, or it's all clear, whatever that positive response status is. So now excavators can have the confidence to look at that positive response before they even bring their crews together and roll out to a work job. Because if they don't need to go out to that work site, why would they? Right. So this will improve that communication. We've also done things to eliminate over notification. We've helped companies understand how the locate process works, reduce their service area mapping. Service area mapping is their mapping where their registered assets are and how they'll receive a locate request. So if you don't need a locate request that's a quarter of a mile away from you, you can reduce your service area mapping to where you can get it within 500 feet or 1,000 feet, or yeah, heck, even as small as 50 feet for some of our assets that are registered. And this improves the communication again because there isn't waste in the system. The locator isn't clearing out 80% of their tickets because it's a quarter of a mile away. And then they can have direct communication with those excavators in that area. So those technology areas have really improved the communication aspect of it. So mapping and positive response. And then more recently, we've also, our law has been updated to give locators more time. 3 years ago, our law was 48 hours notice. And that's how it was worded. And so if someone called in on Monday at 3 p.m. to put in a ticket, they would be due on Wednesday at 3 p.m. And so that's how it was for a while. And then our law got updated to where now it is 48 hours, not including the data notification, weekends, and holidays. And I know that's a lot of words, but in essence, it means 3 business days, right? So now if I call in on a Monday would be the data notification and it doesn't count. Tuesday would be 24 hours. Wednesday would be 48 hours. And now the earliest I could dig would be Thursday morning. So we're giving the locators and member companies who provide those locators additional time to get those locates done on time. So between the technology advancements of reducing those service area mapping to make sure they're getting relevant tickets, providing positive response, which means the excavator can now know what's going on before getting to the site, and the member companies having the opportunity to have those assets registered in a smart way and having more time to locate has improved our locate rate. We have a ticket type called a second notice, and it's exactly what it sounds like, right? Bob's telephone company didn't make it out in time, so we have to provide a second notice to them. Our second notices for late locates is less than 2% of our entire ticket volume. And so we're doing a really good job of making sure that this communication is there and we're trying to keep our locators on time. And when I say our locators, for those who don't know the whole process, OKIE811 is a notification center. So we're not the locating company in any way, shape, or form. Locators are going to be hired by the member companies who are locating their assets, or they'll be internal working for the company themselves. Like this oil and gas company would have their own locators, while some companies will hire a third party like USIC or some other national locating company.
That's great information. And honestly, this is kind of this is a very different question, but in
Yeah.
lieu of it being 811 day, what brings you the most fulfillment in your job?
So I started my job 12 years ago, right? And I started out as an agent processing locate requests over the phone and putting in some web tickets and helping out with that process. I went from there to our mapping department, which GIS, just nerd talk for putting maps together, right? So I did that for a little while. And then I went from there to our member services, exactly what it sounds like, where you just take care of our members, making sure their assets are registered correctly, tickets are going to the right people, things of that nature. So we took care of that for a while. And then I went into this role, like I said, just a little over 5 years ago. And when I took this role, I was really confident that I just figured this all out, right? I'm like, I took calls, I know the mapping, I know how members' responsibilities are. I'm going to be good at this. And I go out and I go and do a presentation in the town of, well, city of Tulsa. And I'm in Tulsa, I'm doing a presentation, and I'm asked to go up there because of tolerance zone conversation. And tolerance zone, like I mentioned earlier, is just where you can't use heavy equipment. I went to this construction company, safety directors like MG, just please harp on the importance of tolerance zone. I said, okay, I will do that. And I get there and he's like, they're kids. This is a young crew. They're not going to pay attention, the whole frontal lobe thing, right? And so I'm like, it's all right, I'm going to do what I can. And so we go through it. And like I've previously mentioned earlier, the excavation safety is and damage prevention. I always want to make sure I say both phrases. I never want to go, I care about damage prevention and I want to care only about excavation safety. They go together because I'm keeping, as okay, well, we're in the middle of those two communities and we're going to make sure both are taken care of. And I'm doing my presentation, I'm going through everything, and I hit a slide that says dig safe. And this is when I first started in this role. And I couldn't remember why I had that slide up there at all. Just couldn't come up with it. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to let them know I made a mistake. And so I just started kind of riffing and started making up some stuff. And I was like, hey, man, there's a few good reasons why I want you to dig safe and a few good reasons why the A11 process is really important. One is me. I work from home a lot. I want to be able to watch football on the weekends. I want to be able to take showers. I want to be able to call my friends. I want to have heat and air, right? I want all those things. So by disrupting my services, you're inconveniencing me. So let's worry about me for a second, and then
Yes.
go. And then I was like, but there's also vulnerable in our community that needs to get through the hot and cold of Oklahoma, that needs to be able to call 911, that needs to be all those things as well. And I realized that I just put me before the vulnerable in our community. So let's switch that.
Yeah.
And then I went into our membership. Our membership are companies that have a bottom line, then they're trying to do everything they can to do business. They're providing products and services to the community, improving our infrastructure, doing all those things that are there, and they make life better. And if you don't think that, just go and try to live without electricity for a week, right? All of our utilities, no matter what angle it is, you don't realize the importance of water until you don't have it, right? So, right? So that's important. So we have your neighbor, we have the vulnerable, and we have our member companies. But ultimately, none of those really matter. The truth of the matter is A11 day, A11 the process, the promotion is about the excavator. We want to make sure that that excavator comes back to work tomorrow just as healthy and safe as they started today. Because I want them to be able to provide for the family, their community, and everything that they want to out of their job. And when I said that, it was like I just punched everyone right in the stomach, and I didn't understand what happened, right? And I'm like, okay. So I shake it off. I'm throwing somebody like a OKIE811 hat, right? Just trying to like reset everything. And I finished up the presentation. Safety director comes up to him and he goes, "Hey, MG, great job." And I'm thinking to myself, it's all right. And he goes, "Do you want to stick around?" And Andrew, if you ever get a public speaking job where you're just out there all the time, if someone asks you to stick around, say yes, because that means you're going to get a free lunch, right? We know this. So of course I go, yeah, of course I'll stick around. He goes, all right, I have to talk to these five guys and we'll leave. I'm like, all right. So he's talking to those five guys, and before as they're walking up, I go, "Hey, are they in trouble?" He goes, "No." I'm like, all right, cool. So I throw him some hats and just hanging out, and I'm closing down my laptop, pulling out the flash drive. And I hear that safety director go, "Hey guys, I hope you were paying attention to MG. He said some really good stuff today about the importance of 811, but the most important thing I want you to hear is how important it is not to dig around that tolerance zone with heavy equipment because there's no reason that we lost a coworker a couple months ago." And in that moment, this is almost 6 years ago now, right? In that moment, I thought to myself, wait a second. I thought I was just processing locate requests and getting flags and paint on the ground so that the excavators can dig safely around it and go home. I never thought to myself, there's people out there that don't know the entire process, who get a job or take shortcuts, who don't understand to put their own safety first before work and before their project, right? And my passion changed instantly. And it went from having a job to keeping people safe. And that's a whole different world. And A11 day, I know it's going to sound silly from the guy who doesn't own a shovel, but here it is 6 years later, and A11 day is the anniversary, the celebration of my passion for this, that damage prevention and excavation safety go hand in hand. They'll never should be apart. And if you ever put one slightly above the other, it's excavation safety, because without those people taking those risks, putting in those shovels in the ground, we wouldn't have the quality of life that we have every day.
When you're able to be in a position where you can utilize all of your strengths and you can drive real world change, that there's no reason why that wouldn't bring fulfillment, right? What would you like policymakers and decision makers to know?
That A11 cannot be pinned to death. In other words, the process of A11 is improving organically year after year after year, whether it's like the law improvements that OK11 has seen, because OK11 can't make law changes. We only advise when asked, right? So we can't do that. But when we see things like additional time for a locator to fulfill that request, when the life of a ticket is 2 weeks, but a member company has 3 days to locate for work that can take place 10 days later, we need to make sure that we're keeping the time frame the same for both our membership and our excavators, because the memberships are the ones who are paying into this. So by looking at damage prevention laws, we don't want to make it so crippling in all the regulations that it cannot keep improving organically. And I think what has happened is we take these loose terms that we have, fine tooth it for a long time, and then when we find out that what that best practice is, then go to law. From conversations and things like that with legislation and other legal influencers, I don't want policies to get ahead of best practices. Policies should always be from what we have found to be the best practice for that particular process. And I think that's what damage prevention law should be. Let's figure this out organically and then put it to paper, not put it to paper and try to make things fit into these boxes.
Well, MG, thank you so much for joining the conversation today. Happy 811 Day, and I look forward
Absolutely.
to talking with you again.
Definitely. And I'm always available for you. And for those who are in Oklahoma or have questions about OKIE811's innovations and things that are taking place here, you can always reach out to us. Our website's easy to find, okie811.org, or you can email me at education@okie811.org. And I look forward to hearing from you.
For those of you who want to learn more about damage prevention, visit AII.org.